If your blood runs orange and blue, this is the pod for you. You're listening to Orange and Blue Bloods, hosted by EJ Stewart and Tommy Beer. Let's get to it.
It was not pretty, but the Knicks survived a shorthanded Miami Heat team to squeak out a win in Game 2. The Heat were playing without Jimmy Butler, but put forth a very inspired effort thanks to the play of Gabe Vincent. He had 21 points in this one. Caleb Martin had 22 points in this one. The Knicks were trailing by as much as 6 in the fourth quarter and were finally able to get over the hump. Thanks to some big baskets from Jalen Brunson, who had 30 in this game. Josh Hart, he nailed some clutch threes in this one. He had 14, 11, and 9, almost got a triple-double in this one. He had some big threes, and that was the reason why the Knicks were able to pull ahead. This was the return of Julius Randle. Randle had missed more than a week's time with an ankle injury. He came back into the lineup. He looked pretty strong. He had a really good game, 25 points, 12 rebounds, 8 assists. RJ Barrett really carried the Knicks through some rough quarters there, especially the first 3 quarters of this game. But he was really one of the constants in this one. He had 24 on 8 of 17 shooting. He did not close this game, which was, by Tibbs' account, a coaching decision. I'm very curious what Tommy thought about that. But let's begin with why the Knicks were able to win this game despite the struggles in your eyes, Tommy. Like, this is a game to me, and I was in the building. It was a weird crowd. It was a tense crowd, and the Knicks didn't give them much reason to really cheer or really get after it. And I think the Heat played with house money, and I think that the crowd allowed them to feel very comfortable because the Knicks weren't giving them a reason to feel uncomfortable. So how are the Knicks able to win this game, and also why did they struggle so much?
I'll answer the first question first. Knicks are down 6 points, 93-87, about 8 minutes left in the fourth. Garden's tight. Brunson comes down, hits a 3-pointer. Following possession is the 4-point play where Hartenstein sets a screen, gets a foul on Bam. Brunson knocks down the 3-pointer. Basically, from that stretch, credit to Spoelstra, credit to the crew of undrafted guys that basically came out of the woodwork to really make this a tight, contested, stressful game for Knicks fans. But at the end of the day, Brunson and Hart, the Villanova guys, kind of put the team on their back. And that was the final 7 minutes of regulation. Hart scored 10 points. Brunson scored 10 points. The entire Heat team combined scored 12 points. 2 biggest shots of Josh Hart's probably NBA career. That first corner 3 with about 5 minutes left to put the Knicks up 3. Heat came back and cut it to 1. Hart hit that second 3-pointer. Keep in mind, the strategy for Miami coming into the series was to dare Josh Hart to take and make 3-pointers. He was 0 for he had missed 7 3-pointers in a row dating back to first quarter of Game 4 of the Cleveland series. That was the last 3-pointer he had hit. Had missed 7 in a row. 0 for 4 in Game 1, 0 for 2 first 3 quarters of Game 2. Still, shot clock running down. Buries that 3. Crowd gets excited, hits another 3. Eventually hit those 2 free throws to seal the contest after the Duncan Robinson 3-pointer after the Julius Randle brain fart, which scared the bejesus out of everyone watching. So Brunson and Hart, is the answer to that. How did it? But I don't want to short shrift Isaiah Hartenstein. Played to me, he gets the game ball. His numbers don't jump out. Actually was rewatching the fourth quarter this morning, and I was stuck. It seemed everything that positive that happened for New York had his fingerprints all over it. I actually, in the post this morning, 7:30 mark. Again, Knicks are down 6. Knicks are down 5 at this point, actually. Hartenstein, 7-footer. 6:42, he sets the screen. 6:08, sets a screen on Cody Martin. Brunson makes a jumper over Duncan Robinson. 2 offensive rebounds the next possession. 4:45, Hartenstein sets a screen for Josh Hart. 4:07, Hartenstein has the screen assist for Brunson 3-pointer. In the game, had a game high 7 screen assists, leading to 17 Knicks points. His offensive rebounding, his heart, his hustle, his effort on both sides of the floor really were a difference maker for the Knicks in that contest. So special shout out to Isaiah Hartenstein. I think that's kind of the big picture, how the Knicks were able to pull away. The downside is that it was a close game, that the Knicks were losing heading into the halftime and losing with 8 minutes left. And I think a lot of that had to do with the defensive game plan going in. We knew once Jimmy Butler was ruled out that the only prayer that Miami had was to bomb in a ton of threes, get to the free throw line, muck up the game, make it ugly, and hopefully they hit more threes than the Knicks, and have a big discrepancy behind the arc. And essentially that's what they did. Attempted 49 threes, made 17. Fortunately for New York, they got a little cold at the end, but the drop coverage, having Mitchell Robinson drop behind, off screens was very frustrating. Again, you can live if Kyle Lowry and Duncan Robinson and Kevin Love and Max Strus are going to slice into the lane and and make layups or kick it, then you can live with that. You cannot allow with those guys shooting wide open threes. They had far too many of them. But eventually, Knicks got the job done. I'm sure you were frustrated by that defensive approach as well.
Yeah, I mean, sitting in the crowd for that game, and it was a great experience being in the Garden for that game. First time I was ever at a playoff game. But as I tweeted, I had dental appointments more enjoyable than that Knicks game. I got to be honest. It was tough to watch, and it was funny. It's bad when I tweet out this defense is awful, and then people are tweeting me, well, the offense is bad too. And then they tweeted me, well, you know what? You're right. This defense is bad. Like, that's how it was. It was like there were stretches in the game where you could have picked either side of the ball, and it's what was awful. There were stretches of the game where the defense was awful. There were stretches of the game where they could not score. That second quarter, I was like, what are they actually doing? Like, at a certain point, it just looked like the Knicks were playing with two guys. It looked like Randle and RJ were the only offensive players the Knicks had doing anything offensively. It was a bizarre game. It's almost one of those games where if you're the Knicks, I almost feel like you say, okay, let's just flush that film down the toilet, because nothing we did in that game is really going to help us win any game moving forward in this series. I think if you take some positives from this one, Randle looked really good coming from the ankle injury. And the fact that he once again was able to come back from an injury, having not played a certain amount of time, and be that productive is really impressive. I think once an accident, two's a trend, and there's three's evidence. We're at the part where two's a trend here, where I think he plays with a different level of focus coming off of an injury. Because when he came out in game 1 against Cleveland, we saw how he started that first half. It was stunning how well he played. You're like, wow, this is he wasn't playing that great before he got hurt. This is the best he played in a while, that first half against Cleveland in game 1. And then we saw the rest of that series. He struggled so much in that series. You're like, what's going on? I really think that he's able to kind of get out of his head about the situation and the pressure. He can just focus on playing the game and staying healthy in the game. And I think that takes away a lot of the pressure, because he played aggressive. He played a mostly clean game. He didn't make perfect decisions, but he also wasn't a disaster with the turnovers. He wasn't the reason why they were down. Offensively, defensively, he had a lot of issues, but offensively, he played really well. So that's one positive. I think the other positive I take away from it, Hartenstein was a monster. He was a beast. Him going after every loose ball, the way he was playing defense. He had a floater in the lane in the fourth quarter. He was awesome. Don't want to discredit him. Don't want to discredit Hart. Don't want to discredit RJ, because he now is starting to put together 4 or 5 games out in a row where he's just getting 25. He looks like a bucket now. So that's really great news on that side. But I think the main takeaway from a positive standpoint has got to be Brunson being able to clearly kind of knuck up to fight through whatever he was going through. Because that was the worst first half I've ever seen Jalen Brunson play in a Knicks uniform. He was passive. He looked like he really couldn't explode. He just was out there. It's rare you watch a game and say Jalen Brunson's having zero impact, but that's what happened in the first half. He had zero impact on that game. And I know they said that there was a pep talk that he had at some point in that game that kind of got the team going. I don't know if he needed to get himself going, or he just needed to kind of power through whatever ankle injury he's dealing with. We know that he was questionable coming into the game. But to see him change the entire landscape of that game with his shot making in the second half, powering through whatever physical issues he was dealing with, showed why he's a special player, why he is deserving of being, a franchise player for this team, why, maybe in the future he ends up becoming the next captain of the New York Knicks. That to me is what I saw from him. That was a special performance from that regard. I'm kind of upset that they played so poorly that we kind of glossing over that. Played so poorly, you don't even want to celebrate how great Brunson was. But it's man, Brunson was playing on a clearly bad ankle, and the Knicks season was about to be over. They were about to lose that game and be probably dispatched in 4 games in this series if they don't win. And Brunson said, not on my watch. And that, I think, for that reason, Jalen Brunson deserves a lot of credit.
Yes, 100%. 23 points in the biggest half of the season, and the biggest half the Knicks have played in a decade. On a clearly, I will admit, yes, it was great to see him come through in the clutch and deliver like he had hoped. I am worried about Brunson's ankle going forward, because this wasn't just he tweaked his ankle in the second quarter of game 1 and kind of scuffled through it. This is a sore ankle, and just said it just kind of snuck up on him and started giving him pain. That concerns me. He tweaked it in the second quarter. You could see he was clearly in pain. That was concerning. As you mentioned, the first half was almost alarming in the fact that he just didn't have that lift. Shot was flat. Shot was short. So a ton of credit for him for white knuckling through the second half. But I will admit I'm concerned about that ankle going forward, as the Knicks, likely looking at a 7-game series. If somehow they escape and move on to the next round, I have all the faith in the world in Brunson when he's healthy. Let's just hope he's, again, the 3 days of rest not only help Jimmy Butler, they will help Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle as well. Speaking of Randle, as you mentioned, a ton of credit for him. First Knick in history with 25, 12, and 8 assists in a playoff game. So at least to match or exceed those numbers. Again, coming back, and I think you make a good point. When you think about it, Randle didn't fight with the referees yesterday. He wasn't, he wasn't. It's almost like he focused his energy on just showing that he was healthy, and kind of maybe he was just okay. I just need to get through this game and not like expend excess energy worrying about calls or officials. All that kind of nonsense. It was clear that, and that's the best version of Randle, that focus. Yeah. Because he's always, there's intensity is always there, but sometimes it's kind of misused and funneled towards, counterproductive items like, foul calls and some other stuff, and teammates and,
trying to do too much. Yeah.
Trying to do too much and spins into the lane, etc. So I thought that was encouraging. So yes, but overall he looked a lot better than I thought he would physically. And again, he has some days to come off. So hopefully he should be good to go Saturday and kind of, a little bit trending in that positive direction.
I mean, we talk about the issues from this game. I mean, offense, I'm not going to harp on it so much because I think a lot of it had to do with the Heat going zone, which, surprise, surprise, the Knicks can't score against the zone. Who would have guessed that? I mean, I feel like we've talked about that all season. They ended up kind of figuring it out. I think Hartenstein setting those good screens at the top of the key. Knicks deciding that their best effort was to screen on the ball, get Brunson kind of going downhill and kind of moving from there. And they were able to get some shots, and they started making shots. That was also a positive sign because they were missing everything in game 1. So they figured it out offensively. I'm not going to harp so much on that. This defense has got to get better. I mean, that's a game where you got guys missing assignments. Guys are dying on every screen. Guys just not paying attention. I mean, Julius Randle is 2 passes away, and he's, on the other side of the court, skipping it over to the baseline to a wide open Kalen Martin. He's nowhere to be found. Kyle Lowry's getting trapped in the corner. He's skipping all the way to the other side. Obi Toppin's guarding nobody. Jalen Brunson's 1 pass away on Strus, not denying the ball. They just swing the ball to the corner and shoots his a 3. Like, some of this stuff was just like insane. And then I didn't mention anything about the drop coverage, which was a lot of the threes that were happening too with Gabe Vincent. Like, I mean, they've got to tighten up. Now, I think the Heat get away with a lot of moving screens. It was driving me crazy. Like, they move on every screen. But look, that's how it's going to get called. So Knicks got to adjust. They got to start switching some of these more. I don't want to see Brunson guarding Strus. Like, I think Strus going out in that game also helped the Knicks because Strus moves more than any other player on the Heat. I don't know. If you have a guy with a bad ankle, why am I going to put him on a guy who they're going to run most of their action through now that Jimmy Butler is out? I thought that was a stupid decision to begin with. And it almost it almost cost the Knicks the season because Strus got really hot too. So defensively, they got to rip up pretty much that entire game plan, especially if this is a series where Butler doesn't play in game 3 and they kind of have to go with a similar game plan because the only chance they had was to shoot a bunch of threes, and Knicks seemed to be acquiescing to that because that's how they play every team. And that almost, again, cost them this game.
Yes. So the game plan was flawed in certain respects. Again, you had to chase shooters off the 3-point line. You can get beat in other ways. Also, and that also part of that is trusting your help defender. Funnel them in the middle and let Mitch and Hartenstein clean up the mess if and when they get into the paint. Because again, you don't have to chase Lowry around screens, and when he goes in the paint, he's not looking to shoot. He's looking to distribute.
Exactly.
So that's one thing. The other issue is just from a functionality standpoint, Brunson has never been a good defender. He's playing on one ankle. He is a horrible defender.
He's killing them right now. Yeah.
He's killing them on the defensive end, and Heat, rightfully so, are targeting it and attacking him relentlessly. And even when they don't attack him, he's short. He's not quick enough to close out on taller shooters. Even when on strong side help, he's 3 feet away and just doesn't have the quickness to get out to the shooters. Doesn't have the height to contest. So that's a mess on that end. They basically have to figure out a way. You can't take him off the floor because he's their best offensive player, the most consistent, efficient scorer. He's the best clutch shooter, so you can't take him off the floor late in games. So there's a lot there, and so they have to kind of game plan around that. But again, there are ways to hide him defensively. They've done that successfully throughout the season, and that's something that Tibbs has to work on going forward.
And I think Brunson's poor defense cost RJ finishing this game.
Yeah,
because Tibbs saw they couldn't stop anybody, and he's like, I gotta get Grimes in there. Okay, I gotta get another guy who can chase people around. And RJ was doing okay. I mean, Vincent did a couple of shots, but part of it's because RJ's guarding a point guard now.
Yes,
because Brunson couldn't guard his matchup.
It's unfair to ask to guard those quick.
Right. So RJ's kind of guarding a guy he shouldn't be guarding anyway. And I thought he was doing okay, and he was giving good effort. I watched the game again this afternoon. And then he had to come out the game because they're like, yo, we need Grimes out there because, again, Brunson, we have to keep Brunson out there because he's the best player. But RJ was playing so well, it put the Knicks kind of in a tough bind. I don't really blame Tibbs for what he did. I know some people were upset about sitting RJ because RJ was playing so well. But to me, that game was about the Heat essentially running out of points. At a certain point, that Heat team was only going to score for so many points. I think for what's the name standpoint, I think he was like, we got to make sure we keep them at whatever it's called, 108 or whatever they had, 101. Keep them to that and not let them go above that, and we'll be fine. I think that's essentially what happened. They kind of outlasted them.
Yeah, listen, those guys are, the reason they're not stars is because they can hit shots, and even big pressure packed games, Hayward Highsmith can make a few threes and those other and Duncan Robinson, etc. But when it comes down to those big boy those fourth quarter clutch, those when the stars come out, that's when you need Butler to step up, and then and then Hero can hit those kind of shots, hit those hero shots. Whereas the Knicks had, Brunson's built for that. Hart is the guy that his whole life has been preparing for, hitting those three. He's like Shaq at the free throw line. He'll make him when he counts, essentially. And that's what he did. A couple things on the decision to bench RJ down the stretch. I did not have a problem with it. Not even second guessing because it worked out. In addition to defensively, again, RJ competed offensively, and RJ was awesome in the first half. The Knicks aren't close enough to make a run and win the game in the fourth quarter if RJ doesn't put them on. RJ and Randle basically don't keep the team afloat, and essentially Barrett again a couple first halves in a row now where he's put the team on his back. So this is certainly not to knock RJ. Was looking at some numbers this morning. Last 5 playoff games, dude is averaging, where's the numbers here? 23.2 points on 52.5% shooting to go along with 5.2 rebounds. How about this stat, Basketball Reference? Barrett is one of 6 players in NBA history, age 22 or younger, to score at least 19 points and shoot over 47% in 5 straight playoff games. The other 5, LeBron, Dwight Howard, Amari, Kareem, and Jerry West. Those are the 5 players in history that have done that. So Barrett's playing incredibly well. They need him, but the issue is with Barrett on the floor. Even though we knock down his threes, he doesn't draw the respect from the Heat perimeter defenders that you would like. And ditto for Hart. They're again through the first 84 minutes, before the final 5 minutes of the fourth quarter of game 2, they were essentially leaving Hart alone. They were giving him the Isaac Okoro treatment in the corner. And what that does is when Brunson plays alongside those 2 dudes, it kind of cramps the floor a little bit. And essentially, the Heat were playing like a 1-3-1 kind of hybrid zone. Even when they weren't going straight zone, they were really, daring other players to shoot. When Grimes is on the floor, even though Grimes hasn't hit a bunch of three-pointers in the series, really this whole postseason hasn't been effective. Teams know, the scouting report tells you, do not give that guy open looks. Don't cheat off in 2 steps. You need to stay within decent closeout distance of that player. I don't care if he's 0 for 7. Watch that guy shoot. Don't give him too many. And we saw the final 7-8 minutes. Hartenstein with some screen and rolls up top, some back screens, etc. The floor was a lot more spaced, and Brunson had a lot more room to work with Grimes on the floor, kind of spacing. So that Grimes gravity helped the Knicks offensive in addition to his defensive contributions. Long story short, they need to find a way to get him more minutes going forward, because even if he's not taking shots, he's a threat to make shots. And that really helps the guys on the floor. It's not fair to RJ, who's played really well. So maybe those minutes come at IQ's costs. Who we'll talk about him. He continues to struggle. But long story short, I don't know if that means switching back up and putting Grimes back in the starting lineup. That's something they have to consider. Hart, is going to be closing, and maybe bring him in with 6 minutes or so. But there are some things that they kind of need to work out there.
And also, Hart's got to shoot the ball, because there were a lot of – he had zero confidence in his shot the first half. He wasn't even looking to shoot. They were daring to shoot, and he wouldn't take those shots. Like, he's got to shoot the ball. Like, if they're going to leave him open like that, like, he's got to be aggressive. And thankfully, late in the game, where the season's on the line, he knew he had no choice but to put these shots up. Some of them shot clock running out. He has to continue to do that, because if he does not shoot the ball, that helps the Heat defense. And he was hurting the team offensively by him not shooting the ball in that first half. So Knicks able to survive in this game, 111-105. These teams don't play again until Tuesday. That's when the series will shift to Miami. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. If you want to see more of our videos, be sure to check out our playlist and let us know what you think in the comments below.
Also, don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date on our latest podcast ventures. Links will be in the descriptions. And as always, thanks for watching, and we will see you in our next video.